Hello, boys and girls. How are you doing today? It's Miss Renee here. I'm so excited that you are joining me online. First of all, I wanted to update you on the granola bars. Y'all earned over 750 granola bars all together and about 20 boxes of Pop-Tarts to bless the children at Oscar Smith. So I'm so proud of you. You should be so proud of yourselves and give yourselves a round of applause and a pat on the back because that is amazing. We are totally going to bless those children. Now, we have to finish our story of Esther from last week. Do you remember what was happening? So let's see if we remember where we are. So Esther was in a situation and she did not know what to do. So remember, she was now Queen Esther, and this man named Haman had put out a law to destroy all of the Jews. And remember, Esther is a Jew, right? And so she found out and she was like, I don't know what to do. So if she went to the king, he could possibly kill her, or he could hold out his golden scepter and then she would be safe and she could go talk to him. So she told Mordecai, who was her uncle, and all of the Jews to fast for 3 days. So that means they weren't going to eat and they were going to focus on praying. And Esther was going to do the same thing, and they were going to try to figure out what Esther should do. Esther was hoping that God was going to answer her and give her direction on what she needed to do. So the third day had arrived, and Esther decided that she was going to be brave, that God had her in this place for such a time as this to save her people. So she put on her royal robes and she went to near where the King Xerxes was. And King Xerxes saw her, and now was the time. What in the world do you think happened? Do you think King Xerxes was like, I don't want to see her? No, the Bible tells us that King Xerxes was pleased with her and he held out the golden scepter to her. That is such good news for her. So Queen Esther was able to walk to King Xerxes and she was able to talk to him. And he said, Queen Esther, what in the world is it that you want? Tell me, I will give you up to half of my kingdom. Y'all, that is a lot. Up to half of his kingdom is like crazy amount. And she said, I would like you and Haman to come to a feast that I'm preparing today. And he was like, okay. So he got Haman and they went to a feast. And while they were at the feast, he asked her again, what is it, Esther, that you want? Tell me, and I will give you up to half of the kingdom. And she said, I want you to come with Haman to my feast tomorrow. Now, when the feast was over, Haman was on his way home and he was so excited. He was at a feast with just the king and the queen. Remember, Haman thought everybody should think he is the coolest person, and so he was super excited and he was ready to go home and tell his friends and his wife that he had just come from a feast. But on his way home, he saw Mordecai. And if you remember, Mordecai would not bow down to him. And that was the reason that Haman had decided to destroy the Jews anyways, was because of Mordecai. And so he saw Mordecai and it made him so angry. And he got home and he told his wife all about it. And he was so angry. And he was like, every time I see Mordecai, he just makes me so angry. And his wife decided that she had a plan. And she said that Haman needed to build a pole that they could kill Mordecai on. And Haman thought that was such a fabulous idea. And so while he's doing that, King Xerxes is trying to sleep. Well, King Xerxes was having a hard time sleeping. So he got out his royal records and he was reading over them. And he came to this part where it talked about Mordecai had saved his life. Do you remember last week we talked about Mordecai was outside of the palace gates and he heard 2 men that were plotting to kill the king? Well, that was the part that King Xerxes had just gotten to, and he was like, what's been done for this man Mordecai? He saved my life. Something should be done for him. So the next morning, Haman comes into King Xerxes, and Haman is ready to go tell King Xerxes that Mordecai needs to die, that Mordecai is just too much, and he makes him so mad, and he just needs to be done with. But when he gets to King Xerxes is like, Haman, what would you do to honor somebody? What would you do to honor a man that needs to be honored? And Haman got so excited because, y'all, Haman thought King Xerxes wanted to honor him. So Haman's like, well, you should put him in a robe. I mean, you should put him in one of your royal robes, and then you should get him on a horse, maybe your royal horse. And he went on and on about all of these things that King Xerxes should do because he thought it was him. And King Xerxes was like, that's a great idea. Now, go get Mordecai. Can you believe that? What in the world do you think Haman's thinking? King Xerxes says, go get Mordecai and put on my royal robe and put him on my royal horse and walk him around the city. Haman was so angry, but he worked for the king, so he still had to go do it. So he had to go get Mordecai, and he had to take him around the city on the royal horse. Oh my goodness. But he still also had to go to the second feast. So he went to the second feast with King Xerxes. And remember, Esther had said that she was going to tell him what she wanted at this feast. And so when they got there, they were eating and drinking, and then King Xerxes says, Esther, what is it that you want? Remember, I will give you up to half of my kingdom. And Esther said, there's this plan to destroy my people, that they should be totally wiped out, and please save them. And King Xerxes was listening, and he was thinking, and he was like, who in the world, what evil person would do this? And now Esther was going to have to be super brave, because the person that she's about to call out and say he did it was sitting right there. And so she might have been a little scared that Haman might have reacted when she called out his name. And so here she goes. I'm sure inside she was praying, asking God to be with her as she said this, but she was about to be brave and courageous. And she said, it's Haman. Haman is the one that made this horrible plan to destroy my people. He's our enemy. And it made King Xerxes so angry. And do you think Haman might have been a little scared at this point? He was probably shaking, thinking, what's going to happen to me? I'm not really sure. But King Xerxes was so mad, and he decided that was the end of Haman. And Haman ended up on that pole that he had set up for Mordecai. So that's not the end of the story, though. Esther has asked for her people to be saved, but nothing has happened. So far, in all of the kingdom, there is a law that on a certain day, the Jews are going to be destroyed. So they had to come up with a plan. So King Xerxes told Mordecai to write out a plan that the Jews were able to fight back against the people that were trying to kill them. And so they wrote out the plan. They signed it with the king's signet ring, and they took it to all of the kingdoms, and they had it in every language for that, so that everybody would know. So when the day came, the Jews were able to fight against the people that were trying to destroy the Jews, because God was on their side. And it tells us that nothing could stand against the Jews. They were able to do it, and they held their own, and God had saved them. Esther had been put in that kingdom for such a time as this to save her people. God was using her. It is so amazing. So after the Jews had defeated all those people, they celebrated. And each year after that, they celebrated with a celebration. And so that is so amazing. So we may not all be kings and queens. I probably will never be a queen. But that doesn't mean that God can't use us. God does not just use kings and queens. God uses everybody that calls on his name. And so even in your life, being 5, 6, or 7, he can still use you. He just needs us to be obedient. He wants us to say, yes, God, I'm willing for you to use me, and then to do what he asked us to do. So maybe you feel a nudge that you should tell your friend about Jesus. Or maybe you should be the hands and feet of Jesus like we just were, and we should bless other people like the children of Oscar Smith that we are going to get to bless. So God can use us. We just have to be willing and say yes and listen when he does. And then sometimes we have to be brave. Sometimes it might be a little bit scary, or we might be a little bit nervous. Like, I don't know if my friend knows about Jesus. What do I say? I'm not really sure. And we just have to be brave and courageous and go for it. Whatever we feel it is that God is going to do. And so he'll use us little by little. And eventually, as we get bigger, we will get to be used by God more and more and more, just like Queen Esther was. So that is our story of Queen Esther. So let's pray. Dear Jesus, thank you for this day. Thank you for this story of Queen Esther, Lord. Lord, help us to be brave and courageous like Queen Esther, Lord.